Hi, I'm Carla Hall, and I want to walk you through one of my favorite desserts. It is a classic banana pudding. It's definitely Southern, definitely part of soul food, and definitely a part of my life. Now, for my banana pudding, there are three parts. There's the pudding, of course, but there's also the cookies, and then there's the meringue. We're going to get started with the pudding. So I want to separate an egg. You can have an egg separator, but your hands work just fine. And then if you think that you need to go from hand to hand to make sure that the whites are all out and separated, you do that. Now make sure your hands are clean, especially with the egg whites. You don't want any oil in your meringue because it will keep your meringue from getting really light and fluffy. So make sure your hands are clean. You see how easy that is? If you get a shell in your egg, just take this shell and just go in and take it out. The shell actually is like a little magnet. They want to be together. All right, so take that out. Okay. All right. Okay. We're trying to work clean. We have a lot going on here. I'm going to keep my egg whites out. It's important that these stay at room temperature because we're going to put them over steam. So I'm just going to set these back here. Our sugar and our cornstarch are going to go into this bowl. So let's put a sifter, mainly for the cornstarch. We want to make sure that there are no clumps. So just put this through the sifter. We have our sugar. Did you find some little impurities in your sugar? Sometimes you find these impurities that you wouldn't know are there unless you did this. Let's put up some salt in here. Most desserts need salt. It's about that balance. So sweet needs to be balanced with salt. So we're just going to whisk this up. Okay. So I'm just whisking this enough so that the eggs are still lemony yellow, just to bring the ingredients together. And you can tell that right as you start, it gets mixed up and stuck into the whisk, but if you keep going, the sugar dissolves and the egg yolks get much lighter. We're gonna set that aside. Now we're gonna work on our banana milk. All right, so let's pour our milk into the blender. You're gonna love this. All right, some half and half. And now I'm gonna cut up some banana. I need about a half a cup. And you can kind of eyeball it. Okay. Looks about right. The reason I'm doing this, now you could mash the bananas and add them later, but the banana gets nice and pureed and mixed in with the milk. So I choose to use this. You can also use an immersion blender. So we have our milk. I'm just gonna put that aside. Now we're gonna add our vanilla bean. You don't have to use a vanilla bean. You can use vanilla extract. I happen to have the vanilla bean here. I like to see the little specks of vanilla in the custard. If you don't have this and you have vanilla extract on hand, it's fine. Just get a paring knife and carefully just slit that right down the center. I'm gonna use our knife to open up the pot, flatten it out. We're gonna get all those beans out. If you have to go over it twice, like I'm clearly doing, that's fine. This is gold. I am gonna get every little bit. This is flavor that is not to be left on the cutting board. Okay. Now, and I can actually put this pot in here to make sure I get all of the vanilla beans out of this pot, and I can take it out later. And let's go in with our milk, with the banana. Let's get our milk on the stove. So we want to heat our cream up. Watch it so that it doesn't boil over. And that's going to get hot. And we're going to temper this hot cream into the cold egg mixture. So tempering happens when you have something hot and something cold and you want to bring them together. So you're taking the hot thing, you're gradually adding it to the room temperature or cold thing to bring the temperature up here, and they're going to meet somewhere in the middle. If you don't do that, all of the work that we did with the egg yolks, they're going to scramble. So they're gonna, which means they're gonna break and they're gonna curdle, and it'll look like little separated cottage cheese. We don't want that. We want something that looks really smooth. So here we're getting the bubbles around the edge, right when it makes that ring, and it is about to happen. That's when you can turn it off. Okay. Let me get a trivet. Okay. Are you ready? You ready to temper? So we have our eggs. Grab your sieve and just go right in there. Makes it nice and smooth. Okay, let's put that back like that. And then now, we just added a little bit at a time. And you're gonna stir that in. You wanna make sure that everything is nice and smooth. And I have my hand on the bottom or the side of the bowl, because if my bowl is still cool, that means that I still have to continue to add the hot milk mixture gradually. Are you starting to feel a little bit of heat? You see it, the sieve is catching some of those pieces of banana that didn't get pureed all the way. It's getting warmer, right? Okay, I think we're almost ready to pour the rest. It's warmer, and you can tell that your egg mixture is now thin. So now I think I'm okay with pouring the rest of it. I'm gonna catch that vanilla bean, which I wanna save. Don't throw your vanilla bean away. Sometimes I'll rinse it and dry it out in the oven, and then I will pulse it with salt, and then you have vanilla salt. Or you can do the same thing with sugar and have vanilla sugar. We're going back in the same pot, and we're gonna cook our custard. All right, so turn that back on to medium heat, like medium high. And the great thing about cornstarch is that you can actually bring this mixture to a boil. The cornstarch is gonna keep your eggs from curdling here. If you're making creme anglaise or a vanilla cream, you have to do it very slowly, and that's when you test the back of the spoon. But here, you can actually bring this to a boil, and we want to do that because we need to cook out the cornstarch. So I'm just slowly whisking it to make sure that there are not going to be any lumps, to make sure that nothing is going to stick to the bottom and burn. Now you see how this foam is on the top of our mixture? When this gets cooked, this foam goes away. So that's one visual clue as to if your custard is cooked. A lot of times people think that making homemade pudding is such a big chore, but it really is easy. And the taste is so much better. It's so worth it. Okay, you see here? So it's getting less foamy. It's cooking. Okay, make sure also get around these corners of your pot with the whisk. You'll feel it starting to get thick. What's happening now is that foam is going away. You see that foam going away? And then it's starting to get thicker. Make sure you get the sides. And if you feel like it's getting away from you, turn the heat down. If it gets thick, make sure you whisk. You see that? Go side to side. It's getting thick now. You see how thick it gets? But you have to make sure that you cook the cornstarch out. And I'm just whisking away. Make sure, though, that the bottom doesn't scorch, because once the bottom scorches, it will permeate through your entire pudding and you will taste that burn. So if you feel like you have to rest and take it off the heat, do that. Rest your arm and then get back on the heat. But I think we're good. I'm gonna turn the stove off. I'm gonna move it over here. I'm gonna taste. You want to make sure that you don't taste anything that's chalky. The cornstarch will be chalky, so if it does taste chalky, put it back on the heat. Blow it because it's hot. Right? So good. Okay, I have my sieve. I have a little pat of butter. That's going to go right in the bottom of my bowl. And the butter is going to melt into the pudding and create this beautiful, unctuous, delicious, fatty feel and taste. It's just delicious. Okay, so pour your pudding in here. So I have a rubber spatula, and I am pushing this through the sieve. This is going to catch any part of my egg that need it to be, like, you know, those little yucky parts of the egg or anything that I didn't catch before. I just want to make sure that it's smooth. Once you push the pudding through, you're going to see that it is actually on the bottom of your sieve. Take your rubber spatula and just scrape that off. That goes into the bowl. And then we have the rest of this. Okay, that's the last little bit. Okay. And repeat the same process. Just push the pudding through the sieve. The finer the sieve, the better. If it's a sieve with big holes, then you're not going to catch all of those fine impurities. And I'm using the term impurities loosely because everything's edible. You just want it to be nice and smooth. So take the flat side of your spatula and just scrape that into the bowl. This bit gets saved because that's a snack before the pudding's ready. Now, I'm just going to stir that butter into the pudding. The butter also makes it nice and smooth. Now the pudding is done. The only thing that we have to do is to chill it. Now before we chill it, we have to get some plastic wrap and put it right on top of the pudding. And the reason that you do this is because you don't want a skin to develop when it cools. We want it to stay nice and smooth because we worked really hard on that. So push the plastic wrap so that it is directly on the pudding itself. Okay, step one done. You did it. Let's put this in the fridge, at least until it cools. That may take about an hour. It may take 2 hours depending on your fridge, so make sure that it's cold. So while our pudding is cooling down, we can be doing things, so you don't have to wait. So I think that the best use of our time is to make our meringue while the pudding is cooling, and we can also cut up our bananas. So let's get some water on the stove. We're gonna take our egg whites and our sugar and put them over a double boiler, and we're going to heat that up to a temperature of about 170. I'm getting really technical, but it is such a stable meringue. Remember those egg whites that we separated? So they're here in our bowl. We're gonna add some sugar, you know, just a little bit. Sugar. By the way, for meringues, it's usually 2 parts sugar to 1 part egg whites. It's a lot. Okay, we're gonna add some salt. You need salt with your sugar. So just mix that, just so the sugar isn't dry. And you see how cloudy it is right now? That means that your sugar isn't dissolved. All we're doing over here over the double boiler is dissolving this sugar. So when we're creating this double boiler, you want to make sure that the bottom of the bowl isn't hitting the bottom of your pan. And you're just simmering the water. Be safe. Grab a pot holder. I'm just going to keep an eye on it. If I don't continue to whisk or to stir it, you will see where the egg looks like a fried egg where it's white. You don't want that. You don't want your egg whites to cook on the bottom of the bowl, so keep it moving. This will be a great time to talk to a friend, listen to a book on tape, listen to some music. We're gonna be together for a while. If your pot doesn't fit perfectly with the mixing bowl, as mine doesn't, I have a fix for that. So I'm gonna get some foil and I'm gonna make a collar. So now all that steam is going to the bowl and it's not in my face. Now the one thing that you're looking for, I'm not trying to whip these egg whites in this bowl. I'm really more interested in dissolving the sugar. So you don't have to worry about whipping air into it here. The mixer is going to do all the work. So I'm going in with my thermometer. Okay. And we're trying to get to like 167, 170. We're climbing. We're at 165. Let's pull it. Turn your stove off. Get your stand mixer. Careful, this is hot. We were just over there on the stove. We could have the balloon whip attachment. So all we gotta do now is mix. We're gonna take advantage of this heat. Let the whisking begin. Okay, so that was like 8 sachets across, a couple of shakes and shimmies, and now we are ready. I want you all to see this. So you see, you should have soft shining peaks, and you feel how stiff that is? It should be really stiff. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? That was what all that time was for. But now we still have more work to do. I love meringue. I don't like gratuitous meringue. I want flavor. We put our salt in there. Now, we're gonna add some acid. Tablespoon of vinegar. This is to balance all of the sweetness. So we want to have that acid, that balance. We're gonna do a tablespoon of vanilla. A half a teaspoon of banana extract. And I love this because you're adding another element of banana. That goes right in. So we're gonna start to mix this. We're gonna go for another 2 minutes just until the meringue cools down. And right now, you'll see that the bowl is still kind of warm. We wanna whip that air into the meringue, and it's gonna be beautiful and shiny and delicious, and it's gonna feel like a marshmallow. Yes. Now, right now, I'm looking at my bowl. I need to wipe down the sides a little bit. So let's do that together. All right. It's also a reason to taste. It's slightly warm, but it is so perfect. This is what you should be seeing. You see how shiny it is, and it's really smooth? You see how that little peak just sticks out like that? It's not going anywhere. Our pudding is chilling. We have our meringue. We'll take it out of this bowl and put it into a container. And then, what's left? To whip our heavy cream, and then we will assemble. So we have our bowl. It's imperative that your heavy cream is cold. Let's pour that into the bowl. We have our stand mixer. Let's get this on. So this is when multitasking is perfect. So while we are whipping our whipped cream, let's cut our bananas. Just in time. So I'm looking for soft peak. So we're gonna make sure that our cream falls over. This is soft peak. our meringue was stiff because that's the end game. But if you need to incorporate this cream into something, and we do, we need to incorporate it into our pudding, it has to be soft. So we have our whipped cream. Now we're gonna grab our pudding that should be nice and chilled. Looks good. So the first thing that we do with our pudding, right now it's pretty stiff. So we wanna loosen it with our whisk. Then you're gonna take part of your cream, just like about a whisk full, and you're going to whisk this into your cream. You're not folding at this point. What we're doing is loosening our pudding. So don't worry about air being deflated in that cream. So now you see how loose it is? Okay, this looks really good. Now we want to incorporate the air. So I'm gonna still do this in a couple of batches. So when you're folding, you hold the side of the bowl, you go into the middle, and then you're gonna come around and bring the pudding over top. Turn the bowl in a quarter. Go in, go around, and into the middle. Quarter turn. Say it with me. In, around, over, quarter turn. In, around, over, quarter turn. Let's finish off the cream. So it should feel like a mousse right now. First you had a pudding, which you know now this has turned into a really light mousse. So now what I'm gonna do is take my cut up bananas, because you know we're doing the banana thing. We have banana in the milk, we have banana chunks, and we have banana in our meringue. So here, these bananas are going to go inside, and I have chunks so that every little bite gets a little bit of banana. I took the liberty of doing these bananas cut on the bias for garnishing. All this time, you should show off. This is looking really good. Okay. Now our pudding is ready. So our shortbread, we have our pudding. I have my meringue. So whatever dish you want to use, it can be a trifle dish. You can use ramekins to make individuals. You can do a long rectangular dish, more like a casserole dish. Whatever you want to make it in, it's perfectly fine. Let's start with some cookies. So I like to do cookies on the bottom. I don't break them up too much because I like that crunch. I don't want the cookies to get soggy, but whatever you like. If you want them smaller, do them smaller. Just do one layer on the bottom. Now I'm going to put pudding right on top. I'm gonna do 2 layers of pudding. So about half of it goes right here. Let's do some more cookies. So normally you would have to do sliced bananas here, but because we already put bananas in the pudding, we don't need to do sliced bananas. We do more cookies. Now, if you used my recipe for the cookies, you have more than enough because somehow whenever I make these cookies, there aren't enough for the banana pudding because people come in and out of the kitchen and they take them. So I would say separate the cookies that you're using for your banana pudding and to make sure you have enough, and then put the rest of them in a cookie jar. Okay. Now let's put the rest of our pudding on top. And as you can see, I'm trying to stay away from the edges because I don't want to get those all messy. So now we can do more cookies. Normally I like the shortbread really light, but when I'm doing the banana pudding, I let it go just a little bit longer because I like that caramelization of the cookie. I like that dark taste. But if you have something that's lighter, that's fine too. Okay, last up, the meringue. So go ahead and give your meringue a whip, because it does deflate a little bit, so you want to make sure that you whip it back up. however you want to do this. Just get it on there and then you can play with it. So you're going to get your meringue on here and just go around and have these little peaks, because those peaks are going to get torched and they'll get a little darker. Now with this leftover meringue, what you can do is put it in the oven and make little pavlovas and bake them on a low temperature, 200 degrees to 250, and they would be absolutely delicious. Now you can do little tiny kisses and you can serve those as a garnish with your banana pudding, or they can be something totally separate. Store this in a plastic container in the fridge, and then before you use it, whip it back up, and then you can bake it. Okay? All right, I'm gonna set that to the side. Now, if you don't have a torch, it's fine. If you're doing a 9x13, you can just put it under the broiler, or you can just serve it like this. I mean, the meringue is delicious. If you have a torch, go lightly with it. At first, just move it around. Let me set that aside. And now I just want to garnish my pudding. So I'm going to go with cookie slices. I'm just going to break them in half. I'm going to take these bananas and just come right in front of the cookies. But look at that. Okay, these are some extras, snacks for the kids. Look at that. You can see the layers. You got that char on top. You've got texture. Look, I know this was a workout. I know it was intense. I know it was a marathon with a lot of steps, but I promise you, it's so worth it. And this is the ultimate showstopper. You're gonna look like a star. Thanks for cooking with me. Come on, you deserve it. Now, go bananas. Serve this to the whole neighborhood. But save a bowl for yourself.